Hi y'all. Okay. So I'm so sorry for taking so long to make this video. But we have been so completely just in awe of this little man. We'll show him later, but he is sleeping right now, or he's content right now. Last y'all saw, I had my membrane sweep and I was 24 hours into it. But you know what was happening at that point. I had lost my mucus plug. I was still having contractions. That night they got really, really close together. They were 5 to 7 minutes apart. My midwife told me that the minute that they hit 5 to 7 minutes, just to go on in to the hospital. Don't even call, don't worry about it, just get in. So we did. We left and we went to the hospital. We get there, I don't even remember what time it was. We get there around 10 or 11 at night, I think. And it was a little bit disheartening, I guess. We get there and they check me, they hook me all up to the monitors and stuff, and I was having contractions, but they were still just a little bit too sporadic. They were 5 to 10 minutes apart is what they were telling me. They weren't completely 5 to 7 and they weren't consistent. So I wasn't technically in active phase of labor. I was just in the early stage as I had been for a while. So it was like, oh my gosh, I have to sit here with more of this contracting every single day, and I was just done at that point. They checked me and I was a 2. I was 2.5. I was just about 2.5. And I was completely like, no way. There's no way I'm still sitting at a 2. I only went half, like really? They said they couldn't admit me until I was a 4. I think my midwife came in about an hour and a half later, and she checked me and I was a 3.5. So I did progress a centimeter technically. So she said that she could go ahead and admit me, that I was close enough to a 4 that she could admit me. And since I was progressing, it looked pretty promising. She still said that I was not in active labor, unfortunately, that I was still in early labor, but that they would go ahead and admit me and they can do an induction. And at that point, I was pretty much done. I was in pain. I was so confused because with Ty, when my contractions hit, I was in labor. There was no doubt about it. I knew I was in labor. With Jett, when my contractions hit at 20-something, 29, 30 weeks or whatever, and they hurt and they were just as strong as what I remember with Ty. Because Ty's weren't painful. If you remember my labor story, they weren't very painful. It was just the whole fact of I kept throwing up and I kept having to go to the bathroom, and it was just annoying. It wasn't really painful. So we did end up staying the night, and the next morning they told me that they would come in and they would start the process at around 8:30, and that they would go ahead and start doing the induction. And at that point, I was so excited. I already knew what his birthday was. I was so ready to meet him. I didn't even care that I was getting induced again. Because this time I was more at peace with, it was my decision to get induced, not the doctors because they were impatient. It was my impatience. Midwife walks in around 8:39, and she's talking to me about, you know, what is going on, what's going to happen. I hadn't progressed any from the night. My contractions totally stopped, and I was getting, well, they didn't totally stop. They were like coming every 15 minutes, so they slowed down drastically, that's for sure. So yeah, definitely was not in active labor, as I knew I wasn't. So I know that the membrane sweep did not work for me at all. It was not the membrane sweep that put me in labor. It was my decision to be induced that did. Oh, I've got to go get him. So she broke my water, which I finally got to experience what that felt like with Ty. I did not get to experience it. I was totally drugged up with the epidural. Did not feel it at all. But it was a little bit painful. A lot of people were telling me that that's like the easiest part of labor is when your water breaks because it's such a relief. Oh my gosh, it was painful. But maybe that's because she had to break it. That she actually broke it for me. I did feel them a little bit more. And actually that's what this clip, I'll go ahead and post this clip really quick. This is what my contractions were like after she broke my water.
That's her. What do you think?
I think I'm ready to see Jett.
No. We're 5 minutes apart. This one is about 4. So. We will see you soon.
I could care less about what was going on at that point. It was pretty painful. Then she came in and she checked me again, and I was 6 centimeters. I was almost 6. And she told me that I could go ahead and get the epidural if I wanted, and I was absolutely getting the epidural. They started the Pitocin, and Pitocin didn't really do much. Didn't really do much at all, actually. And so they had to put it up more. They had to up my level. They did it twice before my contractions really kicked in, and I could not feel them, obviously, but actually, I will say that I could feel these. With Ty, I could not feel anything. There was nothing going on. I could not feel anything. With Jett, I could feel my contractions. They felt like, it felt like pressure. It felt like a lot of pressure. And it was still a little painful. So this epidural did not, I mean, it still took. I was still numb. But I could feel a lot more than what I felt with Ty. So it was a totally different experience, that's for sure. Yeah, he was born at 2-something on 4/14/13. He was I'm gonna get that so confused. Every time I have to say it now, I'm like 4/13/13. It's 4/14/13. He was born April 14th, and he weighed 8 pounds 8 ounces. Now, I know a lot of people are like, that's not big, that's pretty average. Actually, it's not. Average is about 7. And I am, I'm not big. I gained 45 pounds with Ty, and he was 5 pounds 13 ounces. He was born at 37 weeks, but that's just where he was at. I gained 35 pounds with Jett, and he weighed 8 pounds 8 ounces. So, a lot more of what I was eating was getting to Jett. Now, the cool thing about Jett's experience with birth is I had 2 placentas. I thought that was so crazy. And actually, the hospital thought it was really cool. Apparently, it's really rare, and they actually sent it in for testing for pathology. I thought it was so crazy. I had 2 placentas, and they were the exact same size. They couldn't tell me why I had 2, but I did, and it looked really crazy. She showed me what it looked like, and I was just like, one placenta looks gross, but here, let me see my finger, buddy. One placenta is gross enough for me. But adding a second one looks really gross. Now, the thing is, that's not the rare part. The rare part is not the fact that I had 2 placentas. The rare part is the fact that they were connected. They were connected through veins and arteries towards the top, because they were up towards the top of my uterus. So there was one on one side and one on the other, and then they were intertwined with veins and arteries going across, and then from the bottom, they each came down with their own veins and arteries, I guess, to intertwine with the umbilical cord. So I don't know how it happened, and that's why they thought it was so crazy. But he had 2 placentas that were intertwined and working together and they were all connected. I thought it was so crazy. So here he is. Here's my little lump. Hello, little lump. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Look at that face. He is grumpy. He's a grumpy face. He's a cuddler. So he wants to get up close and personal with your body heat. I know. So there's Jett. He's hungry. He's always hungry. It was so much different. I got to see him actually like coming out. I didn't get to see that with Ty, and I got to like touch his head before. Oh, it was so amazing. It sounds so gross, like just talking about it. It's like, ew, that's nasty. But truly, when you're like in that moment and you get to see your baby being born, oh, it's so amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm so glad that I have 2 different kinds of labor and delivery stories. And both of them being so perfect. Oh, I will say, I forgot to mention this. After I did give birth and we were in the recovery room, I did end up hemorrhaging. They believe because I had the 2 placentas that I had another open wound inside of my uterus. Instead of just 1, I had 2. And I did end up hemorrhaging, and it was... It was a little terrifying. Garrett was terrified. I ended up having, I mean, I couldn't really talk. It was very painful. They were rubbing my uterus, like from the outside. They were pushing on my uterus and rubbing it to try to get it to contract because it was not contracting. And I was just bleeding. It was like a constant just blood everywhere, and they kept saying that it was because of clots, and Garrett was terrified. He was terrified because he couldn't do anything. He was holding Jett, and they had the curtain drawn between us, and he couldn't do anything about it. Ty was there with Garrett's mom, and she ended up having to take him down to the cafeteria or just out of the room in general because I was in pain. So I was crying, and he didn't understand. He didn't understand what was going on. He kept asking, "Is mommy gonna be okay?" When they finally did get it to stop, I've got hair in my mouth and I can't do anything about it. When they did finally get it to stop, the first thing that I asked for was Jett so that I could feed him because he was upset and I knew he needed to be fed. And all the nurses there were like, "You're crazy. You were just hemorrhaging and now you're breastfeeding your baby." Like that's pretty amazing, I'm not gonna lie. So it was definitely a different experience. I think that's about it, and I will talk to y'all later. I've got a few more videos that are gonna be uploaded. I just wanted to get this one up first before I did anything else because I knew y'all were ready to hear this story. So, anyway, that's about it. Bye, guys.
What do you think about being a big brother?
Yeah, you can put your own. This one right over here. There you go. Watch him scream.
No.
Beautiful baby voice.
You're there. 8 pounds, 8 ounces. 21.5 inches. 208.